In the following video, I'll work through the process of modeling this character for 3D printing. I'll be using a Prusa printer when printing the model. The first thing I can do is come over to the scene properties and the units area. By default, Blender has the unit system set to metric. Here we have the unit scale. So whether you want your models for 3D print, games, architecture, or animation, having them modeled using real-world scale is kind of fundamental when designing accurate models. When working with models for 3D printing, working in millimeters will be more accurate, but you also want the settings to match the 3D printing software or service you're exporting to. With 3D models for printing, you can usually rescale and align later, but setting these up first can avoid issues in the long run. To set Blender to millimeters, I just need to change the unit scale here to 0.001. The model we create in the following video will be exported for print on a Prusa 3D printer. This process will work for other printers also. The next setting is the length, and I can change this to display millimeter. Having this set to millimeter will have the dimensions displayed and inputted as millimeter in the scene. So back over here, I can press numpad 1 for front view and numpad 5 for orthographic. The grid is now divided into blocks measuring 1 millimeter. You can see this as the cube is 2 millimeter in length and there are 2 grid divisions equal to its length. We can increase the number of divisions for each millimeter from the overlays tab here by reducing this scale. I can enter a value of 0.01 and now each millimeter is divided into 10 divisions. If you set the snap type to increment up top here, then in the scene, I can press G, press and hold Ctrl and snap. And we can now snap along to increments of 0.1 millimeters as I drag this across the screen here. This will allow you to get some very accurate results when modeling. So with that, I can right click, I can rotate around here. I can open the sidebar with the N key. In the view menu, we need to increase the N clip. Because we reduced the scene scale, this setting here now needs to be updated. I can enter 10,000 millimeter. The start clip can also be set to 3 mil. I can press A to select everything and press delete. Press Shift plus A and from mesh add a UV sphere. In the sphere properties, change the radius to 60 millimeters. Press the home key to bring this into view. Open the item tab and check the dimensions are correct. And now we can start modeling. We can rotate it so the front of the sphere is facing forward. I'll press RX90 and enter. Press Ctrl plus A and apply that non-uniform rotation. Press Tab and enter edit mode. Press 3 for face select. Press Alt plus A and deselect all faces. Press C for circle select and paint select these faces here. Right click to exit paint select. Now press E10 and enter. I can press 2 for edge selection. Alt select this edge here and press Ctrl plus B and add a bevel to it. Enter 0.5 and enter. This will soften down the edge here a little. Press numpad 7 and 3 for face selection. I can select 9 faces each side and these will be used to form the ears. With these selected, press numpad 1, press E40 and enter to extrude these up. In the modifiers tab, click add modifier and select a subdivision surface modifier. Increase the views to 2 and check on this option here so we can see this in edit mode without the cage. Press the period key and switch to individual origins. Press S, X and scale these on the X axis and increase them in size a little. Press numpad 3. Press S, Y and scale these down a little. Press G, Y and drag these forward. Press R and also rotate these slightly. Press Z and switch to wireframe shading. Drag select all the faces from the center back. Press G, Y and drag these back to extend the body. Press Z and switch back to solid shading. Press Ctrl plus numpad 7 for bottom view. Press the home key to center him in the view. Alt plus A and deselect. Press C and select 4 faces each side, front and back. These can be used to extrude down the legs. Use the middle mouse button to deselect if you accidentally select faces by mistake. With these selected, I can press numpad 1, press E to extrude these out, press the period key and switch to medium. Press SX and scale these along the X-axis. Press the period key again and switch back to individual origins. Press G, Z and drag these down a little to increase their length. Now I can flatten them on the bottom of the feet by pressing S, Z, 0 and enter. Press Ctrl+R and add an edge loop to each of these legs and drag them down to help flatten the bottom of the legs a little. Just zoom in and make sure no faces are overlapping. Press the period key and select medium point. I can rotate around to the back. Press 1 for Vertex Selection. Select this center vert. Press Ctrl plus numpad plus and increase that selection. Press 3 for face. Press E and extrude this out. S and scale it down. Press E again and drag this out a little bit. Rotate around and drag it back. I don't want this so long. Press numpad 3. Press G and drag it up. Press I and Inset to soften the corners. Press Tab and return to object mode. Right click and choose smooth shading. I can rotate around here. We can see a couple of issues with the ears. So let's tab back into edit mode. Press 1 for Vertex Selection and select this vertex here. Now in the Tool tab, in Options, switch on X Mirror and check on Topology Mirror. That way the vertices I move on the axis on one side will mirror to the other. Now press GG and edge slide this across. I can repeat that for more of these vertices and just reduce the sharpness and unusual shape of the ear. Press numpad 7 and press the home key. Press 2 for edge selection and select these 3 edges here. Double tap G and edge slide this in to reduce the size the opening will be. I can uncheck topology and switch off X mirror. Press 3 for face select. Select these faces now each side. Press X and remove them. Tab back to object mode. On the modifiers tab, click the X and remove the subdivision surface modifier. I want to add a solidify and apply this first. Click add modifier and select the solidify. Set the thickness to 2 mm. Let's come back to the item tab and check the transformations. What I want is the longest part of this model to be 75 mm. I can press S and scale this down until the y-axis equals 75 mm. Press Shift and reduce the scale in smaller increments and left click. Press Ctrl+A and apply that non-uniform scale. That way the modifier is using the current scale of the object. Let's hide the visibility of the solidify modifier. Now tab into edit mode. We need to create a hole in the base so you can withdraw your savings. Press Ctrl plus numpad 7 for bottom view and zoom in. Select these 2 faces here. Now press Shift plus S and place the cursor to selected. Tab back to object mode and press Shift plus A and from mesh choose circle. In the properties, reduce the vertices to 16. That way it's easier to match this on our object. Now press and hold Shift and select the pig and tab into edit mode. I can press 1 for Vertex Selection, press Alt plus A and deselect. Hover the mouse on the circle and press L to select it. I can press S and scale this to the size I want the hole to be and left click. We can use the knife tool to roughly trace out the cut on the mesh using the circle as reference. Press K for the knife tool. I can begin underneath this center vertex here. Left click. Now continue around and click where the circle either overlaps with vertices or edges. In the case where it only overlaps with the face, I can click 1 here. Continue around and just add vertices where necessary. We are adding vertices to the piggy bank mesh as that was the active object and the one we can modify with the knife tool. To finish, click on the first point and press enter to exit the knife tool. With all these selected, let's tab to object mode. In the outliner, I can hide the visibility of the circle. Select the Piggy bank again and tab into Edit Mode. Press 3, X and remove faces. Switch back to Vertex Selection. Now I want to form quads or four-sided polygons on the model. First, press Ctrl+R and add an edge loop this side, left click and right click. Now add one on the opposite side here. Select these two vertices and press J to join them and finish off that edge loop right the way around. Repeat that on the opposite side. Alt select this edge loop, right click and from Loop Tools choose Circle. Press R to rotate and better align to the edges. Press E to extrude, right click. Now press S and scale this in a little. That will just help hold this edge a lot better. Next, tab back to Object Mode. Make sure your scale is applied. That is, it's at 1 in the X, Y and Z because we will apply this modifier now. In the Modifiers tab, make the Solidify modifier visible again. Then hovering on it, I can press Ctrl+A. Back in the scene, I'll press Ctrl+2 and add a Subdivision surface modifier back onto that object. Let's tab into Edit Mode and remove any areas that may have overlapping faces. The bottom of the legs, for example, and the areas within the ears will have faces very close together. These will cause errors on the 3D Print add-on, so now is a good time to fix them. I can zoom into the top here. This object is connected inside to outside by this edge loop here. Press 3 and Alt select this edge loop. I can rotate around so you can see what I've selected. Press delete and select faces and remove those. We also need to remove the connected faces underneath. I can rotate around here and zoom in. Alt select this edge loop. Press X and select faces to remove those. Press A, press P and choose by loose parts. That will separate the mesh into two shells. Let's tab back to Object Mode and select the inner object. Press the / key and isolate it and tab into Edit Mode. Press numpad 1 and press Z and choose Wireframe. Drag select all the bottom faces here. Press Ctrl plus numpad plus to increase the selection. That increases to include the entire leg. Press Z and switch back to solid and rotate around here. Press X and remove faces. I can now select the faces around the ear. Select all of these, both sides. Press C and circle select the remaining faces. Press X and remove faces. I can also press C and select all the faces on the front of the nose. Press Ctrl plus numpad plus to increase the selection. Press X and remove faces. Rotate around to the back now. Zoom in. Press C again and select these faces here. Make sure to select all of these. They are a little messy and overlapping because of the Solidify modifier. Press delete and remove those faces. Press 1 for Vertex Selection. I have missed some vertices here. I can select these and delete them. I'll select this entire ring now. Press F and from the face menu choose Poke Face to finish that off. I can rotate around to the front legs. I'll select this entire ring and from the face menu choose Grid Fill. That doesn't give me the results I want. I can press Ctrl Z just to undo that. Instead, I can press F to fill a face here, but I do need to create quads, so I can select the opposite vertices and press J to join them. The join command is great and will connect vertices through other edges if necessary. I can repeat that on the opposite side and fill this face. Now use the join command to connect up these and create the quads. I can quickly repeat that for the back legs. Create quads here and tidy this up. Repeat that for the opposite side also. Now rotate to the top and fill in both holes where the ears once were. I can remove any extra vertices I neglected to delete. Now to the front where the nose used to be. Alt select this edge loop, press F, and from face, choose poke face. With that done, I can press the / key and return to global. Now tab back to object mode. Press and hold shift and select the outer mesh. Press Ctrl+J and join these back together. Now tab into edit mode. I can alt select both the top and bottom edge loops here. Right click and from loop tools, choose bridge. We also need to repeat that underneath. I'll rotate around and I'll select the top and bottom edge loops. Right click and from loop tools, choose bridge. Let's finish off this opening here. Press 2 for edge selection. This is where an inset can be used to seal the bottom of the piggy bank. Press Ctrl+R and add an edge loop and push to the top. Repeat that and add one to the bottom. With this still selected, press Shift+D and duplicate it. Right click, press P and choose by selection. Tab back to object mode now and select the circle and tab into edit mode. Press A, F. Now press I to inset a little. In the face menu, choose poke faces. Press A, E, input tree and enter. Press the / key to isolate it. Press Ctrl+R and add an edge loop and push that up towards the top. Add a second and push towards the bottom and just tighten up those areas a little. Alt select and shift select the top 3 edge loops here. Press S and scale this down a little. This will just be a wedge piece that can be pushed in. This little piece can be printed separately and tested until you get one that fits. Let's select the bottom vertex. Press Shift+S and choose cursor to selected. Tab back to object mode and right click. From set origin, choose origin to 3D cursor. You can also right click and choose shade smooth. Press the / key and return to global. Let's set the origin on the base of the piggy bank first, then position both on the grid. I do, however, want to maintain the position of the inset in relation to the piggy bank. So we can parent the inset to the piggy bank first. With the inset selected, press Shift and select the piggy bank. Press Ctrl+P and choose Object, and that will parent the inset to the piggy bank. I can press numpad 3 for side view and press the home key. Select the pig now. We can set the origin of the pig at the lowest point on the model. Tab into edit mode. Press Z and switch to wireframe shading. I first want to bring the legs underneath the body as they do look a little bit splayed out. Drag select the front set. Press G, Y and drag these back here. Drag select the bottom and drag these to better line up. I can repeat that for the back legs and drag them forward and line them up as best I can. Now drag select the bottom row of vertices across all legs. Press Shift+S and choose cursor to selected. With that done, I can tab back to object mode, right click and from the set origin menu choose set origin to 3D cursor. Press Shift+S and choose cursor to world origin, Shift+S again and selection to cursor. We can select the inset now and press Alt+P and choose clear and keep transformations. That will remove the parent-child relationship and keep the inset in its current location. Press G, Z, press and hold Ctrl and snap to the bottommost vertex that is in line with the grid floor and left click. I'm going to print these objects together. If the inset fails to fit the first time, I can experiment and maybe change the material or reduce the model in size. You could alternatively add threads to both models and make this a screw-in cap. For this example, I'm going to leave it as a push-in, but feel free to experiment. You can even use the append option from the file menu here and bring in the threads we created in a previous file and rework it to fit this model. Let's check this piggy bank model for any issues first. I can tab into edit mode. On the 3D print add-on, click check all. The first issue are intersecting faces. I can click this and take a look on the model. I can zoom in and rotate around. Press Z and now switch to solid shading. I can alt select this edge loop here. Press Ctrl plus numpad plus twice and increase the selection. Press Z and switch back to wireframe shading. Press G, Z and drag this down to help straighten up this area. I can rotate around a little and take a look at this. I can drag this down a little further and left click. Press 1 for Vertex Selection. Alt select this edge loop here. Press G, Z and drag this up to help flatten the top faces here and left click. Now back on the add-on, click check all. That fixes those issues. I can click non-flat faces and take a look. On the modifier, I will enable this option here. Now take a look at these faces. I don't think these will be an issue. None of these are overlapping and they shouldn't cause any issues. The next issue are overhanging faces. On this model, these are obvious issues. The belly, for example, will be hanging in mid-air. Also, the nose and the tail are not supported and extending out at 90 degrees. We have a couple of options. The first is to add support material in Blender. That involves creating thin mesh objects and inserting them beneath the overhanging areas. The other option is to use the support function in the slicer software. I find this option works well and only adds the minimum amount needed. It also gives you an idea of how you might create your own supports if you need to add them manually in future. We can take a look at that when we import this model into the slicer. The inner faces on the top are also overhanging and may be an issue. We can increase the detail of the print and this may help. You can also slow the print speed down to help reduce the risk of failure and make sure the material cools and stays in position. Let's tab back to object mode and select the cap object. Now tab into edit mode. We can click check all here also. That only has overhanging faces and these are just on the build plate, so they will not be an issue. Now I can tab back to object mode. I noticed the coin opening is a little narrow. I can press 3 and rotate around here. Press Z and switch to solid shading. Select the internal faces along this side. Up top, enable this X mirror option. Now back in the scene, I can double tap G and drag this out a little and left click to place that. Now I can tab back to object mode. Shift select the inset. I now want to increase the size of these objects as they are a little small. Press S 1.2 and enter. Press Ctrl+ A and apply all transformations. With both these objects selected, press F4 and from export choose STL. Navigate to a location to save this file. In the name field I can call this Piggy Bank. Up top here I can check on selection only and down on the bottom click export STL. Now I can open up the Prusa slicer software, come to file, down to import and across and choose STL. Navigate to where I have the model saved, selected and click open. This is a small model and a good size to begin testing. This can be scaled up once the model prints as expected. In the settings area you can set this to detail. That will help with the inner faces up top and the material overhang will be reduced by the finer detail. But to speed up this I can set this to the speed setting. Let's come up to the printer settings up top here and come down to support material. I can put a check mark in generate support material. I need to click yes to update that change. In the pattern menu you can change the type to one of these. This refers to the type of support structure that will be built. I can leave this at the default. I can also check on support on the build plate only. That way no support material will be placed inside the model. They're the only changes I'll make here. Come back to the platter tab. That's all the changes I want to make. So down the bottom I can click slice now. When that completes we can see the green represents the support material. I can also see there is a little support material inside the model, but this will be easily removed after the print has completed. The support material is very light and easy remove. I can speed up the next part of this and we can take a look at this printing. The model printed successfully. The support structure released very easily from the model, and while you do need to be careful separating it, the support only attach very lightly to the surface of the model. When models have very delicate pieces, extra care should be given, as small pieces can give away when removing the supports. The internal structure also came away really easily with no issues. The inset for the base fits in perfectly, but tends to pop out when coins are added, so adding a threaded opening is probably necessary here. If the model is printed full size, the threads will work very well. I'd recommend testing a small section of thread, both inner and outer first, and when they're successful, print as part of the full model. Time to start saving in the new piggy bank, and that's where I leave it.